Teasel's Tudor Trivia!
Hi, welcome to this edition of Teasel's Tudor Trivia. Now, following on from the previous videos that Teasel and I did on how remains were prepared for burial in Tudor times, we thought we'd finish the topic with a talk on burial. Yes, a nice cheery topic for you. As we mentioned in the video on embalming, remains that had just been shrouded rather than embalmed would be moved as quickly as possible from the home to the church, because otherwise you'd have those remains getting rather smelly and stinking the house out. A more important person might be embalmed and then rest at the place of death or lie in state for a while. However, eventually they'd be processed to the church chosen for burial. And if the person was a normal person, a commoner, then the body would be carried by friends or family or transported by cart. At the church, the body would be placed in the hearse, which was a metal stand or a special funeral cart, which might have a coffin incorporated into it. Each parish would have a common hearse that was reusable and belonged to the parish, so that parishioners could make use of it. Great recycling there. Richer people would have their own hearses. The hearse would be placed before the high altar in the chancel with a pall or a hearse cloth over it and lighted candles or tapers situated on top of it. The office of the dead would then take place. The first part was done in the afternoon or evening before burial. This was the placebo or evensong of the dead. There might be a vigil overnight by clergy of the church or paupers or other mourners if the dead person was wealthy. The following morning, matins and lauds would be sung for the departed. This was the dirige or dirge. Sometimes the Mass of the Blessed Virgin Mary or the Mass of the Trinity would be said. After breakfast, a requiem Mass was celebrated. Then the body was interred. Now, this was usually 3 days after death. The priest might carry a sprig of hyssop with which he sprinkled the body with holy water as it was lowered into its grave. This came from Psalm 51, verse 7. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. At some point, a funeral sermon might be given, or a memorial sermon, which was one given without the body being present, for example, if the body was abroad. Bell ringing was an important part of the death rituals and burial. Bells were rung to pronounce the death of a person so that people could pray for his or her soul. Bells showed the status of a person. Half an hour or more for a rich person, shorter bell ringing for a poor person. Bells were also rung at funerals to drive away devils. Now, in my village here in Spain, bells still ring to let villagers know of a death in the village. We're all wondering who it is that's died, and we can ask at the local shop or the town hall to see who it is that's died. And people tend to be buried here within a few days, even the next day after the death. So the bells will then ring out again to call people to the funeral service. After the funeral in Tudor times, there was usually food, just as happens at wakes today. It was very rare for a dead person not to be buried. Exceptions were criminals who might be left to rot, and bodies also left to rot on battlefields. Now, I thought I'd share with you today an account of the funeral of Anne of Cleves, who of course was the fourth wife of Henry VIII, although she wasn't married to him at her death. Her funeral took place on the 4th of August 1557, so in the reign of Queen Mary I. Anne was the only one of Henry VIII's wives to be buried at Westminster Abbey, and her tomb can be found on the south side of the high altar. It's decorated with carvings of a crown and her initials AC, skulls and crossbones, and a lion's head. On the 3rd of August 1557, Anne's remains were processed from her home, Chelsea Old Manor, where she died on the 16th of July, to Westminster Abbey for burial. Merchant tailor and diarist Henry Machin recorded Anne's funeral, and he's a wonderful source for things that happened at this time. He wrote, "The 4th day of August was the Mass of Requiem for my Lady Princess of Cleves and daughter to William Duke of Cleves. And there my Lord Abbot of Westminster made a godly sermon as ever was made. And then the Bishop of London sang Mass in his mitre. And after Mass, my Lord Bishop and my Lord Abbot, mitred, did cense the corpse. And afterward she was carried to her tomb, where she lies with a hearse-cloth of gold, the which lies over her. And there all her head officers broke their staves, and all her hussars broke their rods, and all they cast them into her tomb." And that was actually to show the end of their service, their employment to her. "The which was covered her corpse with black. And all the lords and ladies and knights and gentlemen and gentlewomen did offer. And after Mass, a great dinner at my Lord Abbot's, and my Lady of Winchester was the chief mourner, and my Lord Admiral and my Lord Darcy went of either side of my Lady of Winchester, and so they went in order to dinner." For accounts of other Tudor funerals, you can see my videos on the burials of King Henry VIII, King Edward VI, Robert Dudley, Robert Dudley's wife, Amy Robsart, Lady Margaret Douglas, and also Elizabeth I. And I'll share the links to those with you in the description. Thank you for joining me today, and a very sleepy Teasel. She's obviously done far too much cat chasing today and is rather sleepy now. Thank you for joining us. Take care. You can subscribe, of course, by clicking round about there. You can hit the bell to be notified as these videos go live, and you can leave us a comment. Take care. Bye-bye.
Teasel's Tudor Trivia.